Hello everyone, good morning. We will be starting off with data loaders today. And yes, as I mentioned in the introduction session, when you have to load data into cloud applications, so let me take you back to that slide once. When you have to load the data from other in-house applications or third-party applications into Fusion, you will have to use the seeded loader options given by Oracle. Okay, so it could be HCM data loader or a file-based data import or a spreadsheet data loader. So we're going to look at the data loader section today and what data loader options are available. And to talk about the data loaders, you have different loader options based on the module. Okay, different loader options for different modules. And these modules in Oracle Cloud are typically grouped into two buckets. So they are either referred to as FSCM modules, meaning financials or SCM modules, or HCM modules. If it is FSCM module load that if you want to load data into financials or SCM cloud applications or SCM modules, and if it is a bulk data that you want to upload, whenever we say bulk data, think of it as anything more than 50,000 records or so. Okay, not exactly, but it's a relative figure. So if you have to do a bulk data upload into financials or SCM modules, you can do it with the help of FPDA process. Okay. And so that means if you have to load, so these loader options work for a transaction level data as well as the master data. So whether you want to load the customers or items, or whether you want to load the AR invoices or journals, or you want to load the purchase orders, it doesn't matter. If it is a bulk data you want to upload, you can use FPDA process. And if it is a small data set that you want to upload into FSCM modules, financials or SCM modules, you will use a spreadsheet data loader. And similarly, for HCM Cloud, you've got two different options. So for HCM Cloud, you cannot use FPDA because this FPDA process is a FSCM specific concept. You don't have FPDA templates available to load employees for that matter. If it's a HCM Cloud, you will use HCM data loader for bulk data upload, and you will use HCM spreadsheet data loader if it's a small data set upload into HCM Cloud. Okay, so we'll be covering all four, and we'll be starting off with FPDA today. Okay, so let me take out this yellow color and we'll mark them as complete as and when we finish off a particular topic. So we will be starting off with FPDA, which is a bulk data load option into financials or SCM modules. Okay, and we're going to pick up a journal as an example. Okay, so we'll open up the FPDA sheet. And what is the process that you need to follow in FPDA? FPDA, first of all, what does it stand for? It stands for file-based data import. And what are the steps involved in the file-based data import? Depending on the entity you want to import. So in this case, I want to import journals. And depending on the entity you want to import, you will have to download the FPDA template of that particular data entity. So if it's a journal, you download journal template. AR invoice, you download AR invoice template from Oracle Cloud Documentation or Enterprise Repository. And you will have an Excel sheet downloaded. And in that Excel sheet, you will fill in the data that you have extracted from the client or the client has given you. Or it could be the data that you might have extracted from the client database directly. It could be an EBSR tool that the client might be using, and they might have given you access to that database, and they might have asked you to fetch the data from there. So the data, in some projects, you might be responsible for extracting the data, but in some projects, you will be getting it directly from the client. But irrespective of who generates this data, so you have to plug in the data into the FPDA template, and then you have to generate the zip file. Okay. And this zip file So you have option within the template itself to plug in the data, and you have a button in the FPDA template called generate zip file that you can click, which will generate a FPDA data file. And that will be nothing but a CSV file. So whatever data you enter in the FPDA template, it will be converted into a CSV file. And now I have a file which has the data that I want to load it into cloud. Then what do you need to do? You need to run the common loader job. So the first thing is I need to load the data from the file into staging tables, right? Or into the interface tables. Only then I can run the import job. So to dump the data from the data file into the interface tables, you need to run the loader job. And this loader job is a common job. It is common across entities. So which means it doesn't matter whether you're importing journals or customers or invoices or items or purchase orders, you will run the same loader job. And the job name is this, load interface file for import. And this takes in import job name as an input. And why do you need to pass in import job name as an input? Any idea, any guess here? Since it's a common loader job, there should be a way for this job to identify what is it that you are passing in, right? So it will make out from the import job name that you are going to select whether or what is it that you are trying to import. So loader job will try to or needs this information to identify what entity you are importing, so that it knows into what interface tables it needs to populate the data. So when you are importing the journals, when you run the loader job, we will pass on the import job name as import journals, and we will upload the zip file. We will select the zip file that you have generated. And what will this job do? This job will dump the data into interface tables. So this job will in turn kick off two jobs, transfer file job and load file to interface job. So what are these two jobs again? Why do we need two? So this loader job cannot directly read a file from our local drives. So if I have a zip file placed in my C drive or D drive, and if I ask this job to come and pick up that file, it will not be able to do it. So for this loader job can only pick up a file from UCM. So earlier we didn't had an option to upload a zip file at all, and we had to upload the file to UCM as an explicit step, and then we used to run the loader job. But now Oracle has given us an option to select the file from a local drive and submit the loader job. And this loader job is kicking off two child jobs. First, a transfer file will be kicked off, which will pick up the file from our local drive and it will upload it to UCM. And after that, a load file to interface job will be triggered. Load file to interface job will be triggered, and this will pick up the file from the UCM and it will dump the data from the file into the interface tables. And now the data is in interface tables, and I need to run the import job. So I will run the import journals job as I'm importing journals. You will run the other jobs if you are importing other entities. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this process, execute this process. So what's the first thing I need to do? I need to download the journals FPDA template. So I go to Google and type in journals FPDA template. And I can also mention in the version number if I want. So I can say 21A, because 21A is my version number. Okay, it is showing me templates for 20B, FPDA templates for financials, 20B version. And I click on go to latest release. And now it is showing me FPDA templates for financial modules for 21A version. And the reason I'm picking up 21A is the application that we are using, our Training Institute application, version number is 21A. There might not be major differences between the FPDA templates, might not change drastically, or they might not change at all between the versions, but sometimes you do see some changes between the versions. So it's always better to pick up FPDA template of the version that you are using. And in here, I scroll down, I have FPDA templates for all the common financial data entities. So you can load in customers, you can load in journals, you can load in payables and receivable transactions. You have quite a few available here. So I'm interested in general ledger, expand it, and I want to import journals. Click on journal import. You will see an Excel template attached in there. Download that. And once you download it, copy it, paste it in there, and open up the template. So we are done with step number 1. We have downloaded the template. Yeah, and this is how the template looks like. In the template, there in the first tab, you will have instructions and CSV generation. And even if you don't know anything about journals, if you don't know what is the interface table name, or if you don't know what job you need to run, or if you don't know the FPDA process, if you blindly follow the instructions given here in this particular sheet, you will be able to complete the FPDA load. And again, it's the same thing that we're going to cover in this session as well. Okay, so even if you're trying to do an FPDA data load, say for example for receipts or something else for which which you are doing probably for the first time and you don't know the import job name or interface table name, you will have that information available here. So if you scroll down, you will be able to see what import job you need to run, and you will also see what a loader job also you need to run. So all the details will be available in the first tab, and the number of tabs that you will have in the FPDA template depends on the number of interface tables involved in the entity that you are importing. So what is it that we are trying to import here? Journals, right? So how many interface tables are there for journals? There is only one table, GL interface. So you don't have a GL headers interface and GL lines interface. You have a single interface table called GL interface. So that's why you're seeing only one tab here. But say for example, if you download another template called say payable standard invoice import, open the template. If you open up this template, you will notice that template will also have this common first tab, but you will notice that there are two tabs in there. There will be two tabs in the payables template, because for payables, there are two interface tables. Okay, so for payables, you have two interface tables. So that's why you're seeing two tabs in here, AP invoices interface and AP invoice lines interface. So the number of tabs you have in the FPDA sheet, it will not always be one. It will depend on the number of interface tables you have for that particular entity. Okay. And in this sheet, you have a header row, which indicates what fields you need to populate. And for each field, you will have enough information available. Mandatory fields will be marked with star. And if you put your mouse on top of it, you will have detailed comments for each and every sheet. Which column will be populated? Can it be null? What is its data type? And a couple of lines explaining what the column is all about. And you also notice that there will be some sample rows given by Oracle, which will help you to understand in what format you need to pass in the data. So to import a journal, you need to pass in the ledger ID, you need to pass in the journal source category, currency code, and you will have to pass in the code combination with which a journal line needs to be created. And if you scroll to the right, you will notice that you will have to pass in reference fields as well. You can pass in reference fields, like for example, since we have only one interface table, for journals you have three levels. You have a journal lines, which are grouped into header again. Header is nothing but a journal. And the journals are grouped into batches again. So you can have a batch, journal batch. A single journal batch can contain multiple headers or multiple journals. And each journal header or a journal can contain multiple lines. But even though we have three levels here, at the journal, there is only one interface table, right? So you need to have a way to let the application know how to group the lines into journals and how to group the journals into batches again. And that information you will pass to it with the help of these reference columns. So if you pass in 2 lines or say 4 lines in the FPDA sheet, and if you mention the same journal name, same reference 4, then the FPDA job will create a one journal, not the FPDA job. Import journals job will create one journal. And if the batch name is also same, then the journal will be included under a single batch. But if you if you have 4 lines, and you have given 2 different, you have included, I would say, you said journal 1 for the first 2 lines and journal 2 for the second, third, and the 4th line. In that case, what will happen? The 2 journals will get created. Journal 1 with the first 2 lines and journal 2 will be created with the second 2 lines, or the next set of lines. And again, it depends on what batch, how. So basically this reference 1 and reference 4 control how lines need to be grouped into journals, and how many journals needs to be created will be determined based on this. And how many batches needs to be created will be determined by this. Okay. So this such useful information will be available in the form of sample data here. And there's one important tag. If you scroll to the right, there is something called as interface group identifier. And whatever you pass in this field, it will be populated into a group underscore ID column in the GL interface table. So after you run this, so once you prepare a data file, you run the loader job that will dump the data into interface table, and then you run the import journals job, right? When you run the import journals job, you can restrict this job to pick up and process only the records that you populated. And how you can do it? You can do it by picking up the group ID that you used to populate your records. So you pass in a unique ID here, and you will use that unique ID while kicking off the import journals job. So that way you restrict import journals to pick and process only your records and not everything else that is lying in the interface table. So that way you can be absolutely sure that what are the errors encountered for your batch. Okay, so that's a usage of this group identifier. So what I'll do is, you can pass in the attribute columns as well if you want. And what I'll do is I'll take off all these sample data rows. We don't need them. Take it off. And I have, let me pick up the data from a sample template. Okay, I've copied data for a couple of journals from the previous batch. Okay, and what I'm doing here, I've pasted in the data for a couple of journals. So I want to create 4 journal lines, or I want to import 4 journal lines into a specific ledger. This ledger ID belongs to Dinesh US primary ledger. So I want to import it with this date, currency USD, and journal entry creation date. You can update it to whatever date you want. You can say 08 March 03. And you need to mention the code combination as well. So I've mentioned a specific code combination for debit line, a 0001 for debit line, 0003 for credit line. And I have another set of lines for a different journal. And if I scroll to the right, on the first journal, I have an amount of 100, a debit amount of 100 and a credit amount of 100. And on the second journal, I have a debit amount of 100 and a credit amount of 100. Sorry, 50 and 50. Okay. And for any journal to be created, the thumb rule is the debit and credit amount should match. It doesn't matter how many debit lines or how many credit lines you have. end of the day, for a journal to be created, the debit amount and the credit amount should match. So I have 4 lines, and I am including them as part of different journals. So first of all, let me replace this FT13 with FT14. I will include them as part of a single journal, single batch. Okay, so I have 4 lines, and for reference 4, which will control how many journals, which will decide how many journals need to be created. So I've included the first 2 lines under journal 1, and line 3 and 4 I've included it under a journal 2. So this journal entry name will determine how many journals need to be created. And this journal, this reference 1 or a batch name will determine how many batches need to be created. So you can basically include these two journals in a single batch, or you can include them under different batches if you want. It's up to the client. It's basically the data how it is in the current application at the moment. So you don't generate random batches or a journals here. Okay, so you pass in the batch journal name here and you pass in the batch name there. So I have 4 lines. So when I import this file, 4 lines, one batch should be created, and that batch should have 2 journals, and those 2 journals should have 2 lines each. And the first journal should have 2 lines, one debit line with amount 100, one credit line with amount 100, journal 2 with a debit line and a credit line with amount 50 each. And if I scroll to the right, I will have an identifier in there. So I'll change this to some random number. So I'll say okay, and that's all I need to do. So I have the data ready to be imported. So let me just check the period name as well. Period name is Jan 20, that's fine. But if you look at the effective date of transaction, this date is important, the third column. This date determines into what period the journal needs to be created, or in which period journal needs to be created. And I've used a Jan 20 period as deliberately here, because I know that I've left this period open, so that because for a journal to be imported, the period has to be in a specific status. So instead of worrying about or running into the period related issues every time I do an FPDA load, I have left one of the old period open, and that is Jan 20 period. So when you run the FPDA load, you can change this date. But if you want to change this date as well, see if that GL period is open or not. The date into which the GL period into which this date falls. So once you have the data file ready, what do you want to do? What is the next step? You need to generate the zip file. So we have filled in the data and we need to generate the zip file. So how do you generate it? Go to the first tab. There will be a generate CSV button in there. So let me copy this folder first, the FT14 folder, and click on the generate CSV file. It will ask you to select the folder. So select the folder that you have copied. I think it's not copied properly. Select the FT14 folder and click on save. And it will ask you to enter a folder name as well. That's okay. You don't need to enter anything for the second time. Just click OK. And what will happen is, so if you look at the folder, there is a zip file that has been generated. And within the zip file, you have a CSV file generated, which stands for comma separated values file. And if you open it, you will be able to see the lines that you have included in your Excel sheet. So what basically happens when you click on generate CSV file is data will be picked up from this tab, from the GL interface tab, and a CSV file would be generated with those details, a comma separated values file. And this CSV file will be included as part of the zip file. Okay. And one important point here is you should not rename this CSV file. You should not change the name of this CSV file. But for this zip file, you can give any name you want. Say, for example, if you want to say, if you want to call it as FT14, you can do it. You can give any name to the zip file, but you should not change the CSV file name. And what do you want to do? I want to load in the file now. I want to load in this or import these 4 journal lines into ERP cloud application. So that will take us to the third step. What do I need to do? I need to run the common loader job because I have the data in this file. I want to load it in. So run the common loader job, which is this job. So copy the job name, go to the application and go to tool section. Schedule process. And click on schedule new process. And you can search for this loader job. You can do a search. Search for this load interface file for import job. Select it. And what will it do? It will dump the data into interface tables from a user specified location. So click OK. And it has 2 parameters. So since it is a common loader job, you need to let the import process, you need to select the import process so that it knows what is it that you're trying to import. And it will identify the interface tables based on the import process, and it will dump the data from the data file into those interface tables. So you click on the drop down. And you need to select the import journals job here. Search for it. And click on the drop down, and you need to you have an option to upload a new file. So you click on it, and when you click on it, you get this choose file option. So you copy the location where you have the FPDA file, click on choose file, and you can go to the location where you have the FPDA file ready to import. Open, select it, and click on OK. And when you run this job, what will happen is this file, this job will kick off 2 jobs. First, a transfer file will be kicked off. With what this file will do, it will pick up the file from your local drive and it will upload it to UCM. So it will upload it to UCM. UCM is nothing but a content server. Okay, so the file, so first transfer file will be triggered, which will pick up the file from your local drive and it will upload it to UCM. So that the loader job that gets kicked off after that load file to interface can pick up the file from UCM and load it into interface tables. Why 2-step process? Because this load file to interface cannot pick up or cannot read the file from your local drive. Okay, so you kick off this job. Get a process ID confirmation. You will notice that 2 jobs gets kicked off. Okay, pretty weird. It doesn't take this long to kick off the child jobs usually. I don't have any filters applied. We'll wait for 1 more minute, otherwise we'll switch the instance. We'll go to ECBP test and we'll carry out the exercise. Well, looks like something is wrong in the instance. That's okay. We will we'll go to ECBP test instance. The instance name, everything is same. It's just that in after ECBP, you will have -test, and the same login that we have given you will work there as well. The fusion.tech user. Okay, looks like it got triggered now. So what jobs got triggered? A transfer file is triggered first. This uploaded the file to UCM, and then this load file to interface is triggered, which has dumped the data into interface tables. So if you go to UCM and if you search for FT14, you should be able to see the GL interface.zip file that we have uploaded. And search for it. It's okay. I'm not particularly sure, but yeah, that's what happens. This internally kicks off, uploads a file to UCM, and this picks it up from there and loads it into interface tables. So if you want to figure out whether the data is loaded into interface table or not, what you can do, you can go to the reports and analytics work area, and you can query the interface table. Let's say you go to apologies, guys. So if you, in here, you can create a data model and you can verify the rows loaded into GL interface table. And create a new SQL query. Change the database to FSCM since we are loading in the financials related data. Select star from. GL interface table, where group ID equal to, what's the group ID that we used in the batch? Okay, let's get the group ID. And search for it. So you can see 4 records populated, so which is fine. So the data is populated in interface table now. I can go ahead and run the import journals job now. So go back to monitor process and run the import journals job. And when you run the import journals job, you need to select the data access set, which will be same as a ledger. And you need to select the source that you used in your data file. So we used a journal source as other, which is a seeded source. So you pick it up and use the same to kick off the import journals job. And you see the ledger populated, and you see the group IDs also populated. So what the application or what happened is, all the group IDs that are stuck in the interface table in error state will be populated and it will be displayed here. So when you kick off this import journals job, you can kick it off with all group IDs as an option. And if you do so, this will populate this will try to process all the records that are there in the interface table. But we don't want to do that, right? Because you get confused whether the error has come from your records or from other records. So you want import journals to be restricted to only the group ID that you populated. So click on the drop down and you pick up the group ID that you used in your data file. So we used 98876. I'm not sure if that is correct. So it's 98876. So you go ahead and kick off the job with that group ID. And you've got three parameters that you pass, which controls how the journals need to be created. So we are passing an account combination here. Right? So as a technical consultant, you need not be aware of these three parameters. So you can probably reach out to the functional consultant and ask him what values you need to use for these three parameters. But let me explain how these parameters work. This is plain and simple. It controls whether you want to import DFF or not on the journals. So these two parameters. So the first one, post account errors to suspense. This controls. So you're passing an account combination on each of the lines, right? So you for every journal, once a journal is created, you will have a code combination on the journal line. And for a journal line to be created successfully, it should have a valid account combination. If there is any problem with the account of a particular line, what should happen will be determined by this setting. So if what does it say? Post account errors to suspense. What that means is, if there are some account related errors, if there is a problem with any account, if you pass this value as no, then the journal line will not be loaded where you have the accounting error, or where you have not the accounting error, it's an account error. So if you pass this as yes, what will happen? If you pass this as no, if you have problem with any of these accounts on a particular line, that line will not be loaded. But if you pass this as yes, what will happen is import journals job will create that line which has a problem. Say for example, this account does not exist. Okay, so if you pass in this flag as yes, the line will be created, but it will not be created with this code combination, but instead it will be created with a suspense combination or a suspense account. At a ledger level, when you do the configurations, you can set up a suspense account, and that suspense account will be used to create a journal line wherein you have the problem with that particular segment. Okay, so we usually leave this as no. We usually don't populate this as yes. And there is another flag called create summary journals. The way this works is, if you have 1,000 lines in the data file, and if out of those 1,000 lines, say there is 600 lines, if there are 1,000 lines with a same account combination, say for example this account combination, and there are and in such case, if you and let's assume that all these 1,000 lines belong to the same journal. Okay, in such case, if you pass in this create summary journals as yes, then what will happen is there will be, instead of creating 1,000 lines, only a single line will be created. Okay, and let's assume that each line has a value of 100. Then if you pass the summary journal as yes, okay, If you pass the summary journal as no, what will happen? It's plain and simple. 1000 lines will get created, each with amount 100. But if you pass this summary journal as yes, then what will happen? Instead of 1000 lines, there will be only one line that gets created with an amount of 1 lakh. Okay, so this summary journals determines whether the journal lines need to be summed up based on an account. So if there are multiple lines with the same account on the same journal, then those lines will be summed up and a single line will be created. So this also usually we will load it as no, but you can check with the client, or a functional consultant as to what flags you need to use for all these 3 parameters. So you can go with a no option for all these 3. So again, for input distributive flex field, you can say whether yes or no. And if it is no, flex fields will not be imported. If it is yes, you can also say with validation or without validation. With validation means then it will check whether the flex field segments are enabled or not, whether the attribute values are valid values on the DFF segments or not. It will validate it. If you say without validation, it will blindly insert those records into attribute columns without validating it. And you go ahead and submit the job. Okay, you can see that the import journals have completed successfully. So it kicked off a child job, and the child job output file. So don't look at the import journals output job output file. Look at the output file of import journals child job. That will contain the details of journals that are created. Click on one more. You will see a text file in there. Open it. And you will see a summary. What is the batch ID? What is the status? How many lines are there? How many lines are created? 4 lines. How many journals are created? 2 journals. How many batches? 1 batch is created. And you can see the batch name that is created. Batches created, under batches created, you see a batch name as well. So you copy it and go back into the application. Cancel this. Go back to home page. And you go to the general accounting tab, journals, and if you click on the tasks ribbon, click on manage journals again, search with the batch name and take off the accounting period. This is important because remember we are trying to import data into Jan 20 period. Since we are searching with the exact batch name, you don't need accounting period. You can take it off. But if you still want to retain it, you have to change it to Jan 20. Change this to either Jan 20 or remove it completely. And do a search. So you can see the batch. And this batch has 2 journals. So the same batch has 2 journals, journal 1, journal 2. And the journal 1 is created with $100. Journal 2 is created with $50. So you click on the batch name. And you can see the details. So you see the batch level details here. And you see the journals. If there are multiple journals within the batch, you see arrow mark enabled. So you click on it to go to the next journal if you want. Okay. So the journal 1 has 2 lines with amount 100 each, 1 debit line and 1 credit line. And the lines are also populated with exact accounts that we have passed in. And if you scroll to the next tab, you see second journal created with amounts as 50 debit and 50 credit. And that is what we passed in as a that's what we have passed in the data file. Okay, so this is a happy path. I mean, whenever you load in a file, if it gets loaded successfully, this is how it works out. I mean, if you FPDA process, you need to follow these steps. And in case there are no errors in the data file, which will rarely be the case, usually you will have errors. So we'll talk about error handling options in a moment. But in the case of a success scenario or a happy path, this is how it works. If you perform these steps, extract the data and load it in, it goes through successfully, and you will be able to validate the data in the application as well. So before I talk about error handling options, any questions in the process, guys? Any questions in the FPDA process?
Yeah, Prasad.
Yes, Krishna, please go ahead.
Yes. So Prasad, so question is, you mentioned that people can load from their, local drive or network drive, and it'll be placing the file on the content server. So upon processing the file, will a copy of file will be kind of put in an archive folder or somewhere that will serve as an audit, for future purposes, or will that file will be deleted after processing?
I believe in the case of HCM data loader, so in the case of HCM data loader, you can decide whether you want to retain the file in UCM or not. Because you will notice that when we submit this HCM data loader process, there will be a flag which helps you, or which gives you a control to decide whether you want to retain the file in UCM or not. But in the case of FPDA, I believe it. I'm not particularly sure on the FPDA process. So let's go and check if we have it. We were not able to find the file that we loaded earlier.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So I'm not sure if so my guess was that a transfer file would have, the loader job that was triggered. So this load job that was triggered, I'm not sure if this deleted the file after it has processed it. But let's check it one more time before we come to the conclusion. To answer your question, in HCM data loader, we can decide what we want to do, whether we want to retain it or purge it. And by default, on the content server, there will be a default purge that happens once in 3 months, I believe. Okay. So, but let's check if the file is still there. Let's search for the exact file name. You could see the file lying in that.
Yeah.
So the file will be retained, and you can probably refer to it at a later point.
Great.
And it will also contain who has processed it, or what job has processed it, at what time it was uploaded, and all those details.
Okay. Great. And one last question regarding this is, when, let's say, a job fails, or if it's successful, especially when we are talking about ad hoc situations, so will the business users in a regular production environment, I'm not talking about implementation, will they contact the tech guys to kind of just see, so that they can execute these sequels to ensure, what's loaded, what's not? Let's say if they have a question, or if there is a failure, how does that generally work, from job duties perspective, based on your experience, Prasad?
It will. So during the implementation, we will be doing all these bits in all the milestones. But yes, post go live, you will not have a scenario wherein you need to load in a bulk data into the applications. Okay, so you won't typically have the scenario of doing a bulk data upload into applications, because assuming that they are using R12 at the moment, client is using R12, so you have already uploaded everything from R12 to cloud. And from post go live, they will be using cloud application, meaning you don't need to do the bulk upload. But assume that there is some other system from where the file needs to be loaded in, for whatever reason. In such case, you need to have at least a person from a client who is capable to debug the errors in case they run into some, or they have to at least maintain 1 or 2 technical consultants to look after those processes.
Okay, sure.
If they are incapable of doing it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Prasad.
But usually what we see in the post-go live scenario is,
Uh-huh.
During the during the project implementation, it will be you and me as technical consultants doing these data loads using the bulk data load options.
Okay.
But post go live, these processes will be automated by building integrations in OIC or other integration products can also be used for that. But usually OIC is used with the ERP cloud implementation projects. It stands for Oracle Integration Cloud, and that can be used to build or that can be used to automate these data loads. So whatever you have been doing here, so these 6 or 7 steps can be automated by building an integration. And usually we ask the other systems, say for example, if it's a core banking system that's generating a journals file, we ask it to place it in SFTP. We build an integration in OIC, scheduled orchestration. So overnight it picks up the file, loads it into ERP cloud, attempts to load it into ERP cloud. And if it fails or if it ends in success, if it fails, you can send out a notification and raise a flag. If it completes successfully, you will archive the file and place the log and output files into an SFTP location. So yeah, you might execute these processes manually while the implementation project is going on, but beyond that, or post go live, you will usually have those integrations kicking in, automating the load of or automating the loads into ERP or HCM cloud from other applications.
Okay, thanks. Because I'm like time and again here at our place, we kind of do have these situations where we use bulk load. Right now we are using PeopleSoft for HCM and learning management, and Oracle, EBS for financials. So right now we are planning to go to Oracle Cloud on all the 3 aspects, on three fronts. So yeah, I'm like on the HR side, we have time and again a bulk load scenarios related to like different situations. That was the reason why I was asking this question.
Okay, got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Prasad. Yeah, Prasad, Nagarjuna. Yeah, Prasad, see,
Yes,
your
Nagar.
template. So you're going to the Google. So is that way only one way is there, or we can going to direct in the for instance? And because honestly, what I found that if you have created any FlexiFill, how it does, if you are going to the common Google, so that page I have the FlexiFills. So whether we need to upload that FlexiFill data also, no?
Now, two points here. So we are not downloading the templates from Google. We went to Google to find the documentation link. Okay, so if you don't want to go to Google, so even we are going to the docs.oracle.com through Google because it's quite easy, right? So anybody does it in the real time as well. Like you open up a new tab, search for the template that takes you to the documentation link. Otherwise, what you can do is you can bookmark this cloud documentation link. And from this cloud documentation link, this is official documentation link for Oracle, and you can download the FPDA templates from here. Okay, you cannot download the templates for FPDA from within the application. That's point number 1. No Google. Even through Google, we are going to the documentation link of Oracle, and we are downloading the templates from Oracle repository. Point 2 about the attributes that you mentioned. The attributes, the way it works is when you download the templates, it doesn't matter or it doesn't care whether you define or whether you are using attributes or not. You will notice that the attributes would already be available within the template. So you could see these attribute values in here in the template. There will be fields available, placeholder fields available within the template. There will be a context field and the attribute fields as well. So depending on how many attributes you define on the journal, you can pass in that information here. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. But the FlexiFill concept has come. So if you want to update those data also, so here like a standard.
You will pass in a value here. So if you no, this is not standard. See, DFF is all about custom fields. There is no standard, no custom in there. So you will define. So we have seen how to enable a DFF, right? So we have enabled DFF on the job screen. In a similar way, you enable DFF on the journal screen. And say you create an FT14 context in there. Okay, similar to how we created context on the job DFF. So you will pass in that context as a value here. And say, for example, you enable two segments in there on the journal DFF, say country and city. Then you will pass in those values here. Okay, similar to how we have done it in the job DFF. So this is how you pass in the values. So you have attribute values here, and depending on how many attributes you define, you pass in the values that you want to store into those attributes. Don't get confused with attribute 1 and 2 here, but I have given my own name to the attribute, right? It doesn't matter. So if you pass in the values here, it will go and sit in the custom attributes that you have defined. It works internally. Okay.
Okay. Prasad,
Still not clear? Rajana, did you understand the concept or it's not clear yet?
Yeah. Just I want to know that. See, if you create any flexibility in the screen, so that one I want to take it as example. So to upload the data, so how it is going to your
So you create DFF creation, configuration, and deployment. You're clear with it, right? So do you know how to create a DFF?
Yeah.
And deploy it? After the session, you go ahead and create a DFF on the journal line. Okay, journal entry line. So you go to manage descriptive flex field and search for journal in there. There will be a DFF called journal entry line DFF. And in there, you define a context. You define one context and you enable, say, the country and city, same way we did for the job, even though it doesn't make sense here. And you pass in that new context here and pass in the country and city combinations here. And when you run the import job, there is a parameter called import descriptive flex fields, right? So you select it as yes, and then you run the job. You will notice that after the journal is created within the application. So if you go to the lines, you will be able to see the DFF enabled here, and you will be able to see the context and the segments enabled. Okay. So the DFF attributes are also passing values into them or loading values into them is as good as passing values into the standard columns. So depending on what context you enable, what attributes you have configured, you pass those values there. Okay. Yes.
So, Prasad, a quick question. Might be you are going to cover the same in debug, but we have two steps. One is loading the file and then loading into the staging table, right? Before loading to the actual process. Let us say after the journals are loaded into the staging, if I decided, whatever file I uploaded is wrong, so will I able to correct there?
I'll talk about it in the error handling. Yeah. Okay. I'll talk about it. You have two options. You can decide if you want. You can flush the load, flush the file completely from interface table. You can wipe it out, or if required, you can correct it as well. Both options are available. I'll walk you through that process in a while. Okay.
Hi, Prasad.
Any other questions, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, Suresh.
Prasad, actually it is specifically related to this journal input process. Now we are mentioning some group ID, right? And we are giving some random number, but there is a high possibility that this number may be already existing also. Maybe this is errored out. So during that time, that group ID also will be there in interface table, and this is also will be there in interface table. If I run the load program, it will pick up that journal also. Since that is having some error already, so our journal also will be failed, right? There is a high chance. So every time we have to go and query the database and check it out.
So your understanding is correct, 90% correct.
Okay.
But yes, if there are, say, we loaded this group ID, right? We loaded 4 lines in there. Let's assume that there are 2 error lines in there. Let's say there is one more journal with 2 error lines. Say that those 2 lines have an account error.
Okay.
When you load in this file, now you have 6 lines in total with this group ID. And when you run import journals job, import journals will try to. So if a journal does not have any error, if a particular journal does not have an error, it will load it in. So import journals does not use a policy of load everything or fail everything. Okay, so if you pass in 1,000 lines, and if all the 1,000 lines belong to a single group, a single interface, a single journal, so it depends on what journal it belongs to. So if these lines belong to a different journals, right? So you have used your own journal name, FT14 journal 1, FT14 journal 2. If these two journals does not have any error, then when you run the job with this group ID, yes, the 6 lines will be picked up, that is right. But these 4 lines, since they don't have any error, these 2 journals will be created, journal 1 and journal 2 with these 4 lines. But those 2 errors, for those 2 lines, yes, the error will be reported saying that these 2 lines could not be processed because of so and so error. But yes, it will definitely lead to confusion. You get confused as to, I didn't even populate this journal and it is showing up in the error file, right? Yeah, to avoid confusion, it's always better to to use a sequence and increment the number. Or before you load in any file, just get the max group ID from the interface table and increment it by 1 and populate it here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But it's not a fail all or process all approach. Okay. If there is a journal that does not have an issue, it will go through.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is good. Prasad, then I have another one point, but I'm not sure whether I'm correct or not, because in the integration, when we are tested in the OAC, so what I have done is, you are saying that file name, okay, should be, we should not change that CSV file name, I guess, right? So, but I think I loaded with a different CSV file name also by adding the timestamp until it got loaded. Only for HDL, the name should not be changed, I guess, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, just I recollected it, but maybe you can validate also.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I will check it out. They keep changing this. The recent load that I have done is an year back, so probably they might have changed in that restriction of keeping the same file name. But it's suggestible to leave it as such, because all you want to worry about is the file, a zip file that you have loaded, right? Okay. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Prasad.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions, guys? Okay. I'm surprised that no one asked me this question. I was expecting one of you will ask this question as to how can I validate the data, or can I validate the data in first place? I'm not sure. I think I clarified this point in the introduction session itself, that you cannot plug in any validations. So in EBS, when you do the data load, what do you usually do? You run the validations on each of these fields. Say, for example, I'm loading in this line, and we validate whether the source is valid in ERP Cloud or not, right? Or in EBS or not. And if it's not valid, we don't even populate it to the interface tables. We stop it there itself, right? So all such things are not possible in ERP because you don't get access to the database. And the ledger IDs. So who will tell me the ledger ID? So this is the file that a client is going to give me, right? So who will pass on the ledger ID and who will pass on the source name or a category name? So it works other way around. It's usually the client who tells us what ledger needs to be configured, what source and category, and a functional consultant will set it up. And wherever there is a requirement to pass in IDs like this, you will extract the information and pass it on to the client. So they will have a reference of what is the ID, ledger ID for each ledger. And whenever they want to, depending on into what ledger they want to create a journal or import a journal, they will pass in the appropriate values. And if you want the file to be, if you want the file, or if you want to run the file through some validations before you import it into ERP Cloud, you typically write a package within the source system itself. So probably in EBS R2L instance, you write a package and you will validate this information. If you want to run some custom validations, you will do it while the data extraction itself, and then you load it into the ERP Cloud. Okay, and while doing those validations in the EBS R2L, if you need some extracts from the ERP Cloud, you will do those bulk extractions using DIP reports. You will dump it into staging tables in EBS R2L. You will validate the data and then you will load it in. That's a normal approach that you take for the validations in case you want to plug in any. Okay, and now is Krishna.
Sure. So sorry to probably stop you in the middle. So yeah, you mentioned in one of the classes that we don't have this capability to do this validation. The example that you just gave, yes, absolutely, it works when you are doing the implementation because you have a source system where you can validate all the what you call the movement of the data or this data conversion. But when we are talking about like some inbound interfaces through through different vendors, internal or probably internal systems or external vendors, there are high degree of complexity, high degree of validation that kind of goes through. It's not just a straight extract and input into the system. So in such situations, how this will be dealt, Prasad?
It doesn't matter how many sources from where we need to load in. So it's plain and simple. I need to load a file into ERP Cloud, right? So that's my end goal. And that file has to go through successfully, and I want to load in only validated file. So to validate the file, it doesn't matter how many sources I get the data from. I get the data from say source 1, 2, and 3. And I'll ask all of them to populate data into a common staging area. And from there, I extract the data and I run the package which validates the data against the ERP configurations. And if it goes through fine, I will generate a CSV file itself from that package, and I will place it at a particular location. And from there, I can directly pick it up and load it into ERP Cloud.
So we have the ability to have that through package, right? So the package that you're talking about will have ability before we kind of load into the system while generating the CSV, we have the ability to kind of do the tasks or do the validation there, right?
But that has to happen in the source system. That has to happen in the source system, not in ERP Cloud.
Got it.
In ERP Cloud, you cannot compile a package. Yeah. Okay. So you will validate it before you bring it in. It works that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And we have seen the happy path now. So meaning you load a file and it goes through successfully. But very rarely this will be the case. And 9 out of 10 times you run into issues, right? So let's focus on the error handling options. So if you have to handle errors, what options do we have? Okay, let me walk you through those options now. And in this document 11.0, you have the FPDA process with the screenshots, the same process that we covered just now, so you can go through it. And in this error handling document, you have a screenshots of the error handling options that we're going to talk about, and you can go through it as well. So we'll go through the error reprocessing options. So when you have to reprocess the error records, there are three possible paths that you can take. Okay, so when you have to reprocess an error record, if that error has come because of a missing configuration or setup, okay, say for example, you try to load a file and say you ran into an error saying that ledger is not valid or account is not valid. In such case, you go back to client and you tell them that, boss, you've given me a file which has a line with account number ABC or say 1000 or 8000, but that is not a valid segment in ERP Cloud. So the client will check at his end and he says that, no, it's a valid account. Ask your functional consultant to set it up. So in such case, it's a missing configuration or a setup. So it can be account, it can be source, it can be ledger, it can be any configuration, which is a valid one that is provided in the file, but it's just that it was missed out in a ERP Cloud. So you reach out to functional consultant, ask him to do the missing configuration or setup. And once it is done, all you have to do is rerun the import job. So this will pick up the records again. And when import journal job validates the records before it loads it in, it will find the missing configuration in place after it is done, after it is rectified, and then the same journal gets loaded. So this is one way to resolve the errors. So if there is some configuration or setup which is missing, you can get it done. You can do it yourself or get the help from functional consultant and rerun the job. That's one way of resolving errors. And let's say you ran into the same issue again, say for example, account error or say some other error. And you went back to the client and he said that, sorry, I've given a wrong account number to you. Can you replace that account number with a different account number? So in this case, I need to update the data in interface table. Okay. So to update the data in interface table, so I've stressed on it multiple times that the only query you can run on this or from the data model, I've stressed on it multiple times that you cannot run update or delete queries here, right? But I'm in a situation now wherein I need to update the data in the interface tables. I need to change the account number from say 0008 to 0007. So what do I do in that case? What should I do in that case? I cannot run update GL interface table here. So in such case, Oracle has given an Excel option to download the data from the interface table and correct it. So you have a spreadsheet option available, and which again works with the help of spreadsheet data loader, which we are going to see later on. So you can download the spreadsheet with errors from the application. I'll show you how to do that. And that will download the interface rows for a particular process or a particular batch. You will be able to see 0008 in there. You change it to 0007 and you upload the records back again. And that way you download the errors in a spreadsheet, update the data in interface table and load it back in. But so some of you might have already thought of it that this option might not be feasible every time, right? So sometimes client may say that, might simply say that I have given a wrong file, which is absolutely rubbish. Please discard it. I'll give you a new file. Or sometimes he might ask you to make some changes which are quite complex to achieve. So you have 1,000 lines in a data file, and based on conditions, you need to update the fields to different values based on different columns. So it's not a simple, straightforward replace like 0008 with 0007. In such cases, what you can do, or you might want to first the entire data set that you try to load first, and then load in the second set. Okay, so in such case, you have an option, you have a job called purge interface tables, which you can use to clear the data or wipe out a batch from an interface table. So this way, you can wipe out the first batch, which was sent in by mistake by the client, and you can load in a fresh batch again. Okay, so we'll look at how these three options work in real time. So to look at the first option, and what we do is we will replicate errors, and I'll show you how to correct those errors using these three options. So for example, let's replicate an error first let's generate an error deliberately. Let's go to data migration. And in here, so this is the journal that has been loaded, right? And if you look at the account combination, and if you look at the segments here, if you click on the drop down, you will be able to see what are the valid accounts. Right, so you see that 0001 till 8 is a valid account, 1001 and 1003 are the valid accounts. If you try to load in an account, if you try to load in a line with account as 0009, that is not a valid account, right? Because that is not available in this drop down. And in such case, what happens? A debit line could not be loaded. And since debit line could not be loaded, credit will also not be loaded, because for a journal to be created, debit and credit amount should match, right? So I cannot load in a journal with just a credit line. So in such case, journal itself will error out saying that 0009 account number is not a valid one. So let's quickly replicate that error. And how do I do it? Go to FPDA session. I will copy the CSV file, drag it out, and I use this. Okay, so yeah. You change this 0001 or maybe 0003 to 0009, which is not a valid account. And I will also change this to 0009. Save it. So what did I do? I've changed the credit line's account number to an invalid one. 0003 is a valid one, but not 0009. So let's try to load in this file. And before I load in this file, I'll just change this FT14. I'll just change the batch name and header name. FD14 error 1, replace all. And I will also change this number to 77 98877. Load it in. And you could make the change in the Excel sheet as well and generate a CSV again, but I don't want to go through that process. So send it to compressed folder, and we call it as FD14 error 1. Let's quickly run those couple of processes, the loader and the import job. Run the loader job with the error file. And upload the data file again, the error file this time. And submit the job.
Hey, Prasad.
Yes.
So do you teach OIC also?
Yes, I teach OIC also, Oracle Integration Cloud. These are the two courses I teach at Rainbow. Yeah.
How long it will take OIC? How many hours?
OIC, it's also, it's around 45 to 50 hours. Yeah, you can check with the training institute and get the course content if you want and attend the demo once.
Are you going to start the new batch near future, or I need to wait?
I think it will probably start in a couple of weeks from now, probably after this batch. And we've started OIC batch along with yours at the same time, so it'll take probably a couple of weeks. So once this is over, OIC batch will start.
Oh, thank you.
By the time, yeah. I'm not sure why it's taking so much time to kick off the transfer file. So let's wait for one more minute. We should have probably switched to the test instance the first time we faced this issue, but that's okay.
So for OIC, do I need to know the people, all that SOA things, or it is different?
No, it is different. Absolutely no prerequisites. If you just have a basics of the web service, that's fine, or a previous integration exposure, but it's not mandatory thing. And even if you don't know the web service, nothing to worry. We'll be covering it in the session itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the loader went through successfully. Let's run the import journals job now. Source is other, and the group ID is 98877. Submit the job. And the expectation is that the import journal's child job should end in warning, saying that 0009 is not a valid account. And since the child job ends in warning, the parent also ends in warning. And if you want to look at the error details, you click on the child job. Click on the child job. And click on the text file. That will contain the details about the error. So it says 4 lines went into error, no batch created. And if you scroll down, you see the error message populated for 2 lines. And you see that error code is populated and you don't know what that error code is. If you scroll down, you will have a description about that particular error. It says that the account given is invalid. And it asks us to check the cross-validation rules or the segment values. And if you scroll up, there will be a description as well, which says that a 0009 is not a valid account. And it says that it is missing in the Dinesh account value set. So what happens is when you define a ledger, you configure the accounting transaction flex field. And in those flex fields, you will configure the segments, like company, cost center, account segments. And into those segments, you will attach value sets. We have seen that as well, right? So when you create a flex field, you attach to the segment, you attach value sets. So for the account segment, the value set that was attached is Dinesh account value set, and this value set doesn't have a 0009. And let's say you got this issue in real time, you went back to client saying that you've given me 0009, which is invalid in ERP Cloud. So he says that no, it is valid. Can you ask functional consultant to set it up? So what do you do in such case? You will work with him. You will ask functional consultant to enter this value in the value set. Okay, since we don't have him at the moment, we will help ourselves. What do? We go to this value set. So the first way of resolving errors is not changing anything in the data. Okay, so you ran into that issue because of missing configuration or setup. So you get the setup done, or you get the configuration in place, and you just have to rerun the request. So go to setup and maintenance, manage value sets. Search for it. Manage values. And you can enter a new value straight away. Or you can search for the existing values and see if 0009 already exists in there or not. So you will notice that there is no 0009. So you go ahead and add a new account segment. You can enter a start date or leave it blank. It's okay. And go with the default options. Select any particular account type. So the intention here is to show, just to add an entry to the value set, not to talk about the options here. Save and close again. So now we have a 0009 in the value set. So we go back to the schedule process screen and run the job again. And this time we need to run only the import job, because if you query the interface table, sometimes you might run into that issue that you have seen just now. So you copy the query. If you try to run the data, you get this option, you get this error when it times out, when the data model times out. So you click on OK. Click on catalog again, leave the data model and create a new one again. Or you can create one dummy data model and save it in the draft folders so that you can use that to run the queries every time you want. Create a data model. Run the query. You will will notice that there are out of 4 lines, 2 lines have EF01, 04 error, and the 2 lines are with status P. Don't think that P means processed. It just means that those lines do not have any error. Don't have any error. Okay, so 2 lines have EF04 error. And we have corrected that now. We have done the missing configuration or a setup. Now, which is to add an account in the values, but it could be any other configuration like defining ledger, defining source, defining category, etc. So you run the job again. Select the same group ID and rerun it. And you should see that the journal should get created now. It's completed and completed successfully. And look at the text file. You could see the badge that is created. You could see the lines, badges, and the headers that are created. Okay, so if you go to the manage journal screen, you will be able to query this journal as well, and you will be able to find it out. And let's look at the remaining 2 options tomorrow. Okay, it's already 9:30, so we'll pick up from here tomorrow. Any questions, guys? Okay, I'll take it as no. Thanks for your time, guys. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.